Hello, everyone. This is Daniel, and I'm going to be telling you why Donald Trump is barely capable of learning. And I believe this is true of many evangelicals, and also so many of the politicians in government, and many people who think they're righteous who are not, including many Jewish people, and even some Christians that think they know better, and even Muslims who think they know better. And I'm going to be frank about this. This is the reason why Donald Trump is barely capable of learning. Okay. I'm going to be telling you in an interesting way. So, when you do things your way, you practically don't learn. When you do things your way, you practically don't learn. And pride is the same way of doing things your way. Because because thinking about only yourself, which is I, is the greatest pride that there ever is. And doing things for your flesh, that is helping your flesh and helping you in the terms of the flesh, is pride. And doing things for others is humility. Being a slave is humility. Being a slave to those who hate you is great humility. But the greatest humility is doing things for God and being a complete slave to God. And even if you don't want to be a slave to God, when you do it things just to please God and to love God in the end, is the greatest humility. And basically, doing things for others makes you learn. And basically, all that is, all you have to do is serve others. And I hope I can serve others too. Because pride makes us fools. Humility makes us think. Humility is like let's say, freedom in some ways, but you're just tied with a person who's commanding you to do something for the greater good. Because pride is only for yourself, and pride destroys people on the inside. It corrupts. And pride for yourself makes people hate you for what you say. Now, I'm going to say this: Donald Trump hasn't been all that humble. Donald Trump hasn't been all that humble. He's certainly been lying. Um, I'd say most of the time. He's clearly, I don't want to say it, I don't think he's a child of God. You know? If you are a child of God, you would listen to God. And if you're a child of God, you would be like his father. A child always listens to his father. Because as God, Jesus is a God. Jesus is our God that saves us. We are his father. And then the father, once we grow up, because he never ages, we can marry the father. You know, it's kind of complex, but Jesus never grows up, and we grow up, and we're like daughters. But In a sense, he's the complete opposite of who we are. So, in one sense, once we marry him as a bride, now in spiritual terms, marrying the bride has two terms: physical, which can have problems, and spiritual, that has no problems. Everyone can be Jesus' bride, but not everyone can be the bride of another person. Depends on age, depends on if the family member is connected with another family member of that person that's marrying that person. It's like messed up in certain terms, but it's not messed up in other terms. So in one term, you know, we have to follow rules of the bride. And a third term, you cannot be um, too young to marry. What am I talking about? You cannot be too young to marry. Because if you're too young to marry, that's the third time you cannot do that. So if a child marries a child, it's not okay. I mean, even back then, a 12-year-old had to have strict. They had to be strictly 12 years old in order to marry, and they had to be strictly adult, which is puberty. They had to be strictly adult when they marry, and when they have intercourse. Puberty is in one term when you first become an adult. But in legal terms today, when you become an adult, you're 18 or 21, depending on in which country you're actually in. And in another country, it's 14 because you stop puberty then. Or in another country, it's 10 years old because you start puberty then. I'm not saying it to hurt you. It's just, we have to abide by the law. Whatever that was. We really have to go by the law. Because if we don't, we're breaking God's law too. We have to be going by the law of the government, unless otherwise provided by God, and that we should not do that. That's very rare, and that's just it's very rare that God says we cannot do that. We cannot be part of the government. That's like Egypt. That's like Babylon. That's like the city of Babel. But in Roman times, we had to abide by the government of Rome, and all the laws of the government, all the laws had to be abided by, except for if it goes against Christianity or certain terms of following God. That's 5. But if it means you have to be part of Satan, that's 6. That means you cannot abide by that. And the 7th one, if it's harmful. So really, you have to be careful by what you believe. I mean, am I part of this? We have to be daughters and sons of Jesus. I mean, yeah. Like I said, Jesus is the Almighty God, who is the most humble being that there ever is. Even he has all the power, but he's still the most humble. David, he had his mistakes, but he was very humble. He was absolutely humble and prayed to God. Even he had power. Even he had fame. But his fame slowly soon died because of what Solomon did. He was very famous, but he was famous in a good way excuse me, in a bad way. But funny thing is, I don't know how true this is, but I believe Satanists themselves, a part of the sect of them, basically bow down to Solomon because of his rebellion. You know? So, quite frankly, you have to believe in the source where humility comes from. You know? Humility. It is absolutely rare to find humility, especially these days in America. You know? What's even worse is, it's getting worse. It's getting hard to find humility. And, once you know, I mean, humility. It's nothing bad, but it's also gentle. It's kind. It's beautiful. Humility is a part of love. You know? It is not boasting, because that's part of the flesh. And the flesh loves boasting. Anything you do for the flesh destroys humility, sometimes in a great way. And anything you do for the devil destroys it so much in a huge way. But anything that you do for people, even those who hate you, like I said, helps you. And if you love that person so much, even though he hates you so much, and abuses you, and tears you to pieces, and shoots at you, and shoots and puts bullet holes in you, and ties you up in ropes, and does horrible things to you, and even unthinkable things and not mentionable things on YouTube, and yet you still love him completely so much. It's like, I mean, if you love him, and then you say, I care for you, I want you to feel so much, I want you to feel, um, I want you to feel happiness, I don't want you to feel sadness. I care for you, I love you in a way that is true and sound. And I do not be preferred about it, but basically, I care for you. I love you. I would do anything for you because I care for you. Because I know you're broken. I know you're sad. I wish you could help yourself or something like that. I know you can help yourself. Why didn't you love me? Yet, I still hope that you can love others like I love you. And then hug him. That helps him put hot coals on his head in a symbolic term. Another term, you know, it breaks, melts their heart. It melts their hard heart. If they're reprobate, you know, bad things will happen to them. And nothing bad will happen to anyone else. But if they're not reprobate, they'll be the best leaders of God because you love them so much. And that humility to love them so much back, even though they hurt you so much in every single way, made you want to commit suicide in some ways, which is not a good word, but and all these horrible things that he's done to you, yet you cared for him, you know? That's the identity of humility for others that are hurting you. And humility for God. Let's say he's put you in darkness. You don't know why he's putting you in darkness. Yet you will do anything for God. You will be patient and you will let anything happen to you and let God do the controlling part of you, even though you don't like it. Yet when he answers, when he tells you, what's the reason why I did this? And you can answer, because you were testing. And I know that everything that you do is under your control. You have everything under control, and I don't know your mystery and your mysterious way. I'm just a sheep, and I don't know any better. I barely have knowledge of the earthly things. Let alone almost none of the spiritual things. I let you control me, just like a slave. Just like a slave. And he'll say unto you, I'll give you twice for what you deserve. I'll give you twice of the knowledge and humility and all the things that you can possibly have. He'll give you so much that you'll be saying, thank you, God. I really thank you for that. And that's what you should say is, thank you, God. And thank him for all the things that he's done for you. Because he's doing all the good things for you. He's making sure that if all the bad things happen to you, that you can handle it. He's letting the spiritual oppressors oppress you so you can handle what is to come. Because there's a trial of testing, and there's a trial of testing in the spiritual terms in heaven. Because the devil will be tempting you, and even in the courtrooms of heaven. But don't answer unto him. He looks like the fake Dave. He looks like the fake Jesus. But the real Jesus is the light. And the real Jesus, and the real Jesus is just the birthstone of the Father. First it was Word, that was Jesus. Then he became flesh. The Word became flesh. Then the flesh became the Father. And they were all the Holy Spirit. That's my belief anyway. And don't you think you know everything that don't you think you know everything? Because I just don't know I barely know anything about the spiritual terms, let alone the terms of the earth and the physical things. Because no one really knows things of the physical realm as much as the spiritual realm. No one knows anything that I meant to say. No one knows the things of the spiritual realm as much as the physical realm, because leather is energy. But let's face it, because energy produces heat, and energy produces movement. Same with sugar. Same with fat. It's all energy that is making us move. That's energy. Energy, what is it? Can any of you answer that? We can't. May just as well be spiritual. Because that's all we could actually figure out, you know? It's physical. It's all the physical things are spiritual, aren't they? Trees. They're actual natural energy sources in trees. Yet the trees barely move themselves. Yet they burn so fantastically. Another thing, when animals move, they get their energy source from trees. You know? But when the carnivores eat the herbivores that get energy sources from the trees and from plant matter, which barely move, they just move just as much as herbivores. Herbivores have a lot of energy, yet they eat so much plant matter. Carnivores, they eat so much, they don't eat as much as herbivores. Carnivores just have just so little herbivore meat. Yet there's so many herbivores. And carnivores, they can get to a certain size, and that's it. Killer whales are very impressive. And, then there's a blue whale. I believe that's an herbivore, but on land, they can only get so big. In the water, they have enough energy in the water from the sunlight and from meat. And the sunlight goes to the plant matter, and it really gives enough energy to the fish. And the fish goes to the whale, and the krill goes to the blue whale. And the blue whale goes to the shark. That's it. Sorry to say that. But another term, guess what? Like I said, carnivores can only get to a certain size on Earth, on the land. Even though the Tyrannosaurus Rex was huge, in reality, things have shrunk. Why? Because, I believe they've been hunted down to extinction. They've been hunted down to extinction. But, what is this? Because herbivores were once the size of houses. They were once the size of mansions. But now, another term, herbivores can be the size of mansions still, like the blue whale. But another term, I think the only enemy to the biggest dragon, which I consider the T-Rex, was, I would say, 2 stories tall, and I would say 30 feet across. Same with the T-Rex. But just, I would say, smaller tail, and too big to even move so much. So it was the same. So it was the same size, but the T-Rex was, 30 feet. If the biggest threat to the T-Rex was smaller than the T-Rex itself, and that's why the T-Rex died from that thing, because it had big mouth, yet a small body. Yet that small body could eat so much. And the T-Rex could only eat so much. And, I believe the very biggest that a carnivore could get is 36 feet. That's it. But herbivores, their limit on size, I believe, is 120, 144 feet, depending on which one is even bigger. All creatures have a mass limit. Trees, on the other hand, they don't. The redwood, let's just say, is really tall. It's as tall as a skyrise building. Not entirely like a skyrise building in New York City, but let's say in Rhode Island. One of those skyrise buildings. These redwood trees can get up to 250 feet tall. Maybe 300 feet tall, 100 meters. Some even taller. And some really big trees in California can literally get to, I would say, 50 to 100 feet. Redwood trees make them, that redwood trees dwarf the other trees by 3 to 4 times. Mostly 3 times. But they're huge. And the spruce trees are more like 200 feet with a huge span. If I got the right tree. They got a huge span. And they got huge tree. Like they have a huge amount of branches. The olive tree gets up to 100 feet. And they're from such small seeds. I don't think you understand the energy source. Now, how does the energy from one seed that is this small, not this small, but this small, how does an energy source from a seed this small get to a olive tree? How does a seed get from this small to just a humongous, not olive tree, I meant a mustard tree? How does a mustard tree get so huge from something that small? It's baffling scientists. So, if you're wondering where I'm going, no one knows the answer. Energy is just a mystery that people barely understand. It's moving things, it's hot, and it's the more it moves, the hotter it gets. Let's say, for example, and I'm moving this hot and fast, and I'm practically burning my leg. I mean, if you move faster, I don't know. If you move faster on certain surfaces, you'll really cause fire. You have to be really fast and really energetic to move things so fast and to make fire. Wood does that efficiently. And you can't just do it by hand quite efficiently. You have to use a method with ropes and gears. Like an actual gear set, like some sort of, smaller and bigger. And people used to make fire just by, like with a wood thing, like a small wood to make a huge fire on another wood. Yet, with this wood that was so small, a wood that was so small can make a huge fire and make a forest fire. But they invented methods with rope. So they used the rope, and they ended up making a rope like you can actually pull on the rope really fast, and the tree would end up spinning, and the small wood would end up spinning so fast that it catches fire. That small wood can catch a fire, and then it's something funny because the smallest spark, that smallest source of energy, can cause a forest fire. And I believe the campfire from, let's say, campfire from that California fire from last year, that was just, I believe, from a spark. And even worse, ember. Ember from several hundred miles away caused a fire in another section of California, several hundred miles away. And the funny thing is, the shocking truth is, that small energy source, that small energy size, it's about this size by this size. Yet it caused a humongous fire next to LA. And a spark from this fire, so small amount of energy, destroyed lives. And let me tell you, there is no mystery more puzzling than energy. Some pills require energy. The mind pills, the heart pills, brain pills, pills for joint, unless that's not prescribed for that, and even pills for disease, they require energy. The body has to break it down, and that energy has to go to another source to get the energy. Even though it's a small amount of energy, it's really turning lives around. Energy is nothing to be messed with. And let me tell you something. What is energy? Did you know that in 90% of the surfaces that we own today have been created by energy? Actually, let me take that back. I would say 100% of the sources that we have today have been created by energy. Everything that we create have been created by energy, including walls, including walls, including all of this that's around you. Everything was created by energy. Every single thing was created by energy. Energy, I don't think, has rules. If you're wondering, that goes into quantum physics. Energy. Yet it obeys itself. Energy, in one way, is proud. But energy, in another way, is not proud. It follows its leader, which is the spirit. It's following the spiritual realm. So spirits are the one. Spiritual realm is the one that's basically creating the energy. The screen that you're looking at, yes, this screen on your computer that you're looking at, and how to look at it, but this screen, the one that you're looking at, is creating energy. It has a battery for most of you. If you don't have a battery, it's still coming from a wire. This huge amount of energy is being transferred through small wires. Some of you big wires. For those who are living in poor countries. Energy is so mysterious. It's, like I said, sugar, fat, protein, vitamins, minerals. Even salt has energy. Everything that we own in the world has energy. Okay. So the people. that so the people that did not invent clothes, or so the people invented, you know, let's say sheepskin, or they didn't. And the people, let's say, they invent things. Like a person invented a home. That was the simplest thing. Shelter in a cave. Those things were quite simple. An axe, quite simple. All they need is a stick that is straight, a piece of rope, and a rock that is carved, and we're set. But it requires so many complex things. It's created by energy, which we'll probably never know. We'll never know what energy is. It creates so simple things. Creates such simple things. And how we're living, how people were born. Guys, where all of this comes from, we don't know the spiritual realm. Yet the physical realm is so puzzling. Um, Much less knowing what the spiritual realm is. So those who think they know it all, they just don't know anything about the spiritual realm, except for through God. And those that think they're better than others, what about the demons who are better than you? Yet they're so evil. Not that we're so evil, we're wonderfully and we're wonderfully and fearfully made, respectfully made. What about the demons? They were created by themselves, most likely. They were created in vessels of corruption. Interesting. Yet we're created as human beings. So, in one term, what do we have against that? In one term, if we have vessels of corruption, we'll just be like the demons. Because they were once angels. We have high superiority over demons once we die and get to heaven. I mean, there's middle ground. That's such a scary place called hell. Because we're on the bottom ground. We have authority. But the only authority that we have is spiritual. And God created our spirit within us that came from God. God created us to have authority over demons. So, in that regard, only God can give us authority over demons. But once we do it ourselves, we do not have authority over demons. And we have all authority over animals. Same with demons and angels. We can even have authority over angels. And even better, we can have authority over God. And he can say, all right, I'll do it. But only in rare cases. Why is that? We can tell God we want this, and we will have this, and He will do it. Only if you believe in Him. Same with angels. Same with demons. To everyone else, they don't have it. They only have authority over animals. Some don't even have authority over animals. They just are lost. So once we have Jesus, we have great authority. We have authority over angels. And, we're just like God. In the one term, in heaven, we'll have the things like the gods. We'll be better than that. By another term, we're just different. Not saying that we're going to be like the gods, but Jesus said that if you get to heaven, you'll be on the mercy seat next to the Father, next to Jesus. And once you have, once you're in heaven, you can create, and God will breathe life into it. Once you're in heaven, you can even create other worlds. It's just set of paperwork and fitness tests to see if we're capable. It's just that interesting. Because Earth was the first Earth was the first world that we know of. But I believe the first world we know that was ever created was heaven. Then the set of angels came in the likeness of us, angels, and God Himself. And even better, angels cannot go back in time. In heaven, we can do that because we have God's Spirit. Angels, where did they come from? Well, He created them, of course. And like He created spirits, He creates the physical things. And I don't pretend to know everything, but I guess there are certain things that we can see. But again, if there's more things that ever comes up with other planets, well, let me tell you. Either there's 2 planets or there's 1 planet. There's one for heaven, and there's one for heaven. There's one for hell, there's one for hell. And that's all we know. The funny thing is, perfect bodies, perfect mind. That's when we know everything. The physical realm, we just don't know. The spiritual realm, and that's quite the mystery. What does heaven look like? Well, it looks like Earth, but glorified. What does hell look like? It looks like Earth's caves, but corrupted. Now, even better. What should we do about it? We should go to Jesus. Now, in terms of Trump, he does not go to Jesus in certain ways because his pride has blinded him. Why do I know that? Well, he thinks of himself better than anyone else. Again, he'd rather serve a wall than serve others. Because even though enemy nations, even though we have enemy nations, against us, we're to actually protect as many people as possible. We're to protect as many people as possible, and we're actually to love as many people as possible. And if they're enemies, we're to care for them, even if it's treason to basically go to the enemy's country and support it. You know, basically, if they ever come to you, just support them no matter what. You know, because knowing just one thing, we're all people. But if the enemy is going to harm you as a human, don't give in to harm. Don't give in to him harming you. But try to change him just by loving him. That's all you can do. Yet if you can't change him, love him also. Then leave him be. Because in very rare situations, we ever, have to stay with him. But that's just almost beyond rare. But also, people. We have good and bad. Hitler even had bad. And the Antichrist even had good. The beast, I don't know. But the false prophet even has good. He has some good. And Hitler's bad times, even he's had some good. Even though he was broken and hateful and despiseful and perverse, he still supported he still supported his country, and he still supported his troops, even though they were doing evil. He made some people happy. And at good times, he even cared for the Christians. And at his worst, he felt bad for himself. Because he knew where he was going. And the good part of him, he was just, not I'm supporting him. He was very aware spiritually. He was very aware. But yet, he was just very evil. No one can be completely evil. No one can be. Only Satan and his demons can be completely evil. And they 100% support each other, but they can 100% basically hurt each other's lives to the point where they have to support hurting us. And you hear stories of, angels in hell being tormented by other angels so that they can actually torment us. They're that mean. But it's no civil war. All they do is batter themselves up, make themselves stronger by pain. In such an evil way, such an out of control evil way, they know what they're doing. They fear Satan. But in another way, they fear us. They're filled with fear. Such bad fear. And they so absolutely 100% hate God. Yet Hitler, he absolutely hated God. But I knew, in one way, that God created him, but he hated that. He had Satan's hate, but he had support for people. Even the world supports itself, but which way does it support itself? You can agree that the most um, perverse, most you know, the most perverse and most perverted and most immoral person that the world ever has today, never has ever had. You can actually agree that they know that there is a God, and they're just a rebellion against Him. They have the devil's rebellion and pride. Guys, you can have hate, you can have rebellion, you can have pride, you can have um, corruption, you can have anger, you can have fear, you can have um, perversion by witchcraft or perversion by idolatry. You can lie a lot. And another thing is, you can just be out of control. But you can't have them all. Only have only one of them. But for one thing, we're just humans. But pride. It kills us from within. But humility builds us up. And let me tell you again, for the last time, I'm going to wrap this up completely. Okay. Once you think of yourself only, you barely learn anything. And really, what the reason for that is, once you only think about yourself, and you don't want to just go by anyone else's teachings, and you're only thinking about yourself. Let's say you're thinking about yourself, and someone's telling you to do something. That person that's telling you to do something is helping you, but you're not helping yourself. And a fool never listens to intention, because that's what they do. They're fools. They don't think. Once you think for yourself only, the flesh only wants to destroy you. Let's give another example, a better example. If you only thought about yourself in class and you thought about this computer, that extravagant computer right here in your screen time or whatever you have on your cell phone, guess what? You'll get F's. And if you ever only think about the computer and you're only thinking about the things on the computer and you don't learn that much English, if you're doing that all the time since birth, and you're looking at how fun the things are and how funny these things are, and you're just not learning anything, and you don't know how to do or solve anything, you would have an IQ of 60. You wouldn't even know how to speak easily. You would barely know English or any other language just because you were not learning. You were just thinking about yourself. Even Donald Trump learned, but he was nowadays proud. He's barely learning anything. That's what a fool is. They don't learn off of experience. They just think about themselves. and they're just confused, lost, and barely even thinking. They don't think straight. They're just they just don't know what they don't know how to be godly. And for people to be with God, you'd have to be humble. You would have to be with God. And you would have to be almost a slave of God to actually know what he's doing. You would have to learn from God. In that experience, do what God tells you to do. Learn from what God tells you. Learn everything from what God tells you. And do what everyone tells you to learn, only by God giving you the thumbs up. Then you become geniuses. Because if you are a person that wants to solve problems, you would have to learn first. Because if you love learning and love correction, you'll have an IQ of 120 or above. Because tough correction, tough love, and love that's gentle, that is that is learning with the intention, you know. That is when you say, I, I die to myself. I never want to be part of myself again. I don't want my flesh to control me anymore. I'm done. It's all up to you, God. All things that are of you, God, I'll do. I'll learn from other people and support other people because humility loves God. Humility loves others like you love yourself just as much as you love yourself. Pride, in one way, is hate because it only supports yourself. Pride is only supporting yourself. It doesn't care about others. It just cares for yourself. That's all. It's hurtful. It hurts so many people. Pride doesn't care about other people. It only cares about yourself. And the center of pride is yourself. That's just my advice. Because look up all the comments that Donald Trump make. Some of them are lies, and a lot of it is pride. In the middle of yourself and lies, no, in the middle of yourself and pride are lies about yourself. That's better than anyone else. Pride is really lies because pride. When you have pride, you're only looking down. But instead, you're not looking up to God. Another way of pride. If you think you know everything, you've stopped growing in Jesus Christ. You've stopped growing in the way of God. Because if you're an infant of Christ, if you're a complete infant of Christ, just a newborn, and you think you know everything, you're sucking on your mother's milk. And it's just going to be tests after tests. It's all just going to be tests. Just because you think you know everything, you're always going to be in that hospital. But if you're like a newborn, let's say you're 1 month old, you're just going to be listening to mother, being supported by mother, not learning anything. But if you're 2 years old, you're just going to be, you know, just being rebellious, thinking you know everything. Most people stop at the age of 2, yet they don't go to school. Don't listen to the intentions of churches. That's where you completely stopped. It's when you think it's when you think you know everything. Some people think they know everything just before they're infants of Christ. And they're not going to be infants. They're not going to be born. They're just going to be unborn. They're just going to be lost in the womb, and they're going to be stillborn. So remember, learn by others if it's great for you. Because if you're really learning, you're really being humble. So just remember that, okay? Alright, I'll be done now, okay? Bye.